hello. Hello, hello. Welcome back, welcome back. It's been a minute. How is everyone doing? Just gonna add some people. Hello, hello. Welcome. How is everyone doing? Just gonna wait for some more people to join us. Let me know how your weekend went. Let me know if you can hear me. Hello, hello. We're just gonna wait for some more people to join us. How's everyone's weekend going? Or how did everyone's weekend go? Hello, hello. Hello, Michael. Long time. It's been a minute. Just waiting for some more people. Thank you. I appreciate it. Trying to, you know? It's good. Everyone had a great weekend. Hopefully it was busy. Just waiting for some more people. Make sure you invite people. It's going to be an amazing interview. It's International Women's Month, so we have to celebrate, right? Hello, Ty. Welcome, welcome. Make sure you invite people. It's going to be a great conversation. Maybe next week I might do an open discussion. So if you want to be a part of that, message me and I will make things happen. We're going to wait a couple more minutes. Make sure you invite people. Let's get started. So for those that are new, that was Breathless by Joy Lapse, the person I'm interviewing this evening. So before we actually get to the interview, I am Danielle George. I am your host. Welcome to All Things Pan. We are sponsored by Pantastics 868. I have one of the sticks here. I'm going to be content creator for a sec. So these are the tenor sticks. I think we have black, blue, green, red. If you're in the Caribbean or anywhere else, make sure you message him. Let him know that you're looking for sticks. They have anything from tenor, I believe, all the way to bass sticks. And if you live in North America, make sure you message me and I will try my best to get them to you. So on that note, like I said, for those that are new on this page, welcome again. On this page, we talk to panists, arrangers, tuners, builders, pan enthusiasts, pretty much about all things pan. So on that note, I would like 80 of the hour. Since it's International Women's Month, I thought, let's not do interviews with all women. Let's support. Hello.
Hi, Danielle.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
Good. Always eventful. Good.
Once you do that, I understand understand.
Yeah, yeah. It was good though.
That's good. That's good. Well, I want to just thank you for accepting my invitation to being on the show. It's, I
Absolutely.
I'm I'm so excited.
I'm
I
honored.
actually yeah, I actually saw you like literally just before COVID. I was like, who's this Joy person? They just started following you. And I was so amazed with like all the work you've done. It's just I'm I I am just
Oh, thank you. Same for you. Yeah, no, I've been following you too, so it's really nice.
yeah, thank
So
you.
good to connect.
So before we start, we're gonna start easy.
Mhm.
And I always like to let my people know that if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. She can't leave, so she has to answer them. Everything PG, keep it PG. We can't get too risky. But for those that don't know who you are, who is Joy?
Okay. Well, I am. I would say so. If I'm going to talk about myself just personally, I am a mom of two. I always say I'm a wife of one. you know, um, and I feel like um, my personal life and myself, I'm an Afro-Caribbean woman. My parents are from Antigua, but I was born in Canada, and so my, that personal, like my role as a sister, as a wife, as a mom, um, as a human being, as a person of Afro-Caribbean descent in Canada, and then my upbringing in community really kind of informs my work. And so professionally, I describe myself as an artist, educator, creative consultant, and creative womanist. That's how I describe myself. And so artistically, I lean into steel pan as my tool for community engagement, for creation. I usually write music that's centered around steel pan for the most part. And then, as an educator, my work is in steel pan education and using the steel pen as a way to engage students. I help educators build programs, or community organizations build programs and connect to people. Because if you're in the pen community, and I see some people that are right in, that are, you kind of know that it's like you kind of have to be in to know,
Yeah,
like, so Uncle so and so tunes these pens over here, and it's a little bit,
yeah.
so I try to, because I believe so much in our practice, I try to use my, the connections that I've been able to make over time to kind of help to kind of like bridge the connection for those who don't know but want to know, and see that they might have students or community that might benefit
Hmm.
from the beautiful thing that is pen. And as a consultant, it's still the same. So sometimes I'm not just helping one teacher build a program, but my work has expanded into like working with different boards, and help really. I'm working with a board right now to look at how we can dismantle anti-Black racism through the arts and the steel pen as one of the tools. And even my husband and I, we just co-curated a festival. So like, that
Hmm.
curatorial kind of creative kind of thing comes in. And I'm actually, my undergrad is in business. I always tell people that I hated international business, but it has served me. And I say that I was divinely placed there, but it has served me in the sense that I've been able to use that understanding and been able to bring that to the arts world, whether in, like an arts management, or like I've adjudicated hundreds of grants. You know what I mean? From small project
Hmm.
grants to large organizational operating grants. And then now it's kind of come into play, with just helping other artists like understand their personal finance. So it's not something that I like advertise, but people will call me and be like, "Hey, Joy, what am I supposed to do?" I'm like, "Collect
Oh,
all your receipts, collect them." or, or
yeah.
just understand, because I think for us, not just artists or panists, but as I think as gig workers per se, like, and I think the pandemic really showed everybody how much we depend on us,
Hmm.
but how much the world isn't set up for us. So because I believe so strongly that art is so important, and that art, and a lot of the artists that I know, it's like they need to do what they do, but in order to do that, they have to understand the other side of it.
Yeah.
So when Larnell and I, when I just met my husband, I used to be like, invite your friends over, and I used to make them chicken wings and soup and be like, you need to do your taxes.
Oh,
And just because, like, because things that I'd experienced, but they were just,
yeah.
his friends are just these amazing musicians that people don't know. Like people don't know how, like what they're doing. But in order, again, in order to do that work, you have to be able to do this side of it. And sometimes we shy away
Right.
from it. And then creative womanist, I just say that like I feel like it's not necessarily a thing, but more of a way of thinking and being, and trying to make room for other women, or making people think about us. and
Yes.
and you know, as you, I'm sure as a mom, like, you know, I feel like our voices are missed and our voices
Mm.
need to be represented. So I just try to, like, you know, where I can elbow things, I try to make room so that our voices are heard, because when you take care of Black women, you take care of everybody. Like,
Amen.
you know.
Amen. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's me. That's me. Yeah.
So much. And we're going to dive into every little piece of that.
Thank you.
So, how did you get involved in PAN? Like, who pushed you? Did something fall into your lap? Did someone teach you? How did that happen?
I went to a predominantly Afro-Caribbean church in
Okay.
Scarborough, so like in Toronto here, and the minister, who was also from Antigua, you know, there's different things they were offering it within the church, and he decided, I don't know if it was him, but he just went on the pulpit one day during announcements and said they were starting
Yeah.
scale pan lessons. And my godmother came with her checkbook that she was going to pay for my first scale pan lessons. And so, yeah, it was the Church of the Nativity. We were and eventually we became the Nativity Steel Angels, and we started to gig at
Oh,
other
wow.
church events and community events. And I just really liked it. Like my sisters also played, other youth in the church played, but I
Hmm.
really, like, it was my thing. I just couldn't, you couldn't separate me from it. And I
Yeah.
think my teacher really saw that, and he just kind of put me on. He would bring me on gigs. We played duets. And then
Oh,
eventually,
wow.
if he was like, if he had 2 gigs on a night, he'd send me on a gig, and he would, like, you know, record these backing tracks for me and send me on gigs. And so that's kind of how I got started
Oh,
in
wow.
pants.
So you literally just got, thank your godmother then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And my parents nurtured it, but she was like, you know, and she was that, she's still that kind of person, but she's that kind of
That's
person
good.
that she's gonna put her money where her mouth.
That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
So do you have a go-to pan? Have you played everything? Do you have like what pan is your first love?
Um, I think, so for me, like my pan that I express myself on is the lead, the soprano.
Hmm.
And unlike most soloists, like I don't have a low G, I don't even have a low C. Every time I get a low C, I'm like, the sound is not giving enough for me. So I play it. So, you know, I play a D, but I
Yeah.
play, and then typically what happens is in a pan yard setting, I'll just go to the arranger and then I'll be like, what do you need this year? And then,
Right.
so that's mostly put me on a cello, for cello and double second. And I always want to play bass, but there's always too many people.
Always.
so, so I
Always.
love, like, if there was another instrument that I would like, it would be bass guitar, bass. I could just hold a bass and hug it. But yeah, I kind of just, that's kind of been me, because I don't mind stretching that way.
Hmm.
So I'll just go to the, say to the arranger, what do you need? And
Right.
yeah,
But
usually gets me a point.
your first love is a tenor is what you're saying. Or your first love is a bass if you could.
Mhm. But I can't go around soloing on a six.
I
So
mean, you could be the first. You could be the first.
it could be.
It might be a little challenging. You have to rent a van every time and lift the basses. It's a bit of work, but I mean, you could be the first one to do it.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So, as a mother, as you mentioned earlier, how do you balance family and and being a musician? For those that are out there watching and they're in the same boat, they're like, I don't know how to balance. I'm having trouble. I'm either more family or more music, and it's just how do I find the balance?
Yeah, I think it's just family and community. I think
Yeah.
that that's the only way. Like legit right now, my mother's downstairs watching my 2 children. Like it's family. And then for us, my son has special needs, and so that extends our care circle, extends quite, it's quite expansive.
Yeah.
Um it's like my sisters, and then we actually have caregivers, like, and nurses that
Okay.
help with that.
Hmm.
So I think, and that's our situation, but I think it's really just a community. I think if I see people here from different places, but I think that, like, if you've moved out of the Caribbean and you're in like the Western world, it's very individualistic, and
Yeah.
we can become, and we're very, we move away from intergenerational living. And so, but I think that like, and I think that sometimes that people need space, or people have toxic parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like with reason, but I think that like I think we're missing what's happening. And I think when we look at even like the dissolution of marriage that happens, you know, after 10 years, like for me, I'm just like, I look at it and I live and I look at my experience. I think like that could be two young children just, and with two people who don't know how to navigate and no community. And we might move away because a house price is cheap, but we don't realize that we don't have anybody over there.
Right.
And so
Right.
for me, we've been lucky to live close. My husband's family is extremely supportive. Geographically, they're not as close to us, but still supportive. And then I live close to my sisters. My mom lives with us. My dad, call my dad, can you pick up my daughter from daycare?
Yeah.
He'll do it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's it. And I think, and just to build that, whatever that means for you is to build that. And I think that like, and it's not just for children, but I just think that I think our practice tells us like we're meant to be in community, and a lot of times for a lot of different reasons we just get separated.
Right.
And again, society kind of tells us like, this is my house, I live here, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so that's my answer.
I was taking notes in my head, but I will write some down. So you mentioned your husband, and I noticed you guys do a lot of stuff together. I believe he's a drummer.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did that come about? Did that just happen, or did you force him?
So I have to thank my sister for this one. My sister I think it was my sister who told me. So there's this showcase. It's based in Toronto, but it's open to women across Canada. It's called the Honey Jam.
Okay.
And the Honey Jam is like this all women showcase that happens like in August every year. And I auditioned for the showcase. And so this was like 2003. And the day of the showcase, that's when I met him. So he was playing for this other artist, this beautiful gospel artist named Amoy. And it was actually the day that the Eastern Seaboard like blacked out. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but like, so I met him the day of the blackout.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And so that's how we met. We just at a music event, and yeah, I think apparently I walked across the room and he saw me. Like the story is different depending on who you ask. And then the lights went out. So I ended up meeting him again a couple days later when they remounted the event. And then we kind of met up again a couple of different places. And yeah, my gosh, 4 years later we started dating. 3 years later we got married. And yeah, we're going on 13 years. Yeah, thank you.
So he's your one in close support for you. When you have a gig, he will come and play drums, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah. Not all the time. Like I have a gig next week, but he's not coming to. Good. But yeah, he's like, so he's for people who don't know, his name is Larnell Lewis, and he's quite in demand in his work, and he's worked with, you know, world renowned artists. He's won a few Grammys with Snarky Puppy. His first record was Juno nominated in The Moment, and he's very versatile. So anything from jazz to, somebody called him the other day to play down all the hip hop tracks they wanted for their touring tracks. You know what I mean? And but he's also, you know, I wouldn't say I say like he moved into Pan because of me, but I feel the Pan Royals would have found him outside of me.
I like that.
He's also been, you know, played in steel bands and been asked to Trinidad to play in steel bands and stuff like that. So yeah, and I would say like he's a great educator as well, and also multi-instrumentalist and producer.
That's amazing. So you should be touring, girl.
Yeah. No, we did. We toured a lot this summer, and yeah.
Good. Okay, so I'm gonna bring you over to Alberta. You know, we need you over here. So, talking about your albums and stuff, you have You had four. I don't want to. I have them here on my computer because I don't want to misspeak. But you have "How Great Thou Art" in 2004, "Joyful Noise" in 2006, "It's Music Time" in 2007, "Morning Sunrise" in 2014, and then this new release, "Girl in the Yard."
Yes, I have it here.
Yay! That is
Yeah.
so. "Girl in the Yard." First, how did you come with the name? Because I love it. The artwork is
Thank
amazing.
you.
The music, I can't even like.
Oh, thanks.
It is an amazing album. If you guys haven't listened to it, I suggest you download it, stream it, buy. You see the record. I know there's people that have records, record players, and love records. Buy that. I have a friend that has a record player. I might buy that for her. So, I have so many questions. How did you come with the name, artwork, the song choices,
Okay, yeah.
everything?
So the name of the work, Girl in the Yard, is kind of like this concept around just looking at the idea of just girls being allowed in the pan yard. And if you look historically at
Mm-hmm.
women not being allowed to play, heck, like women not even be able to date a pan man, like so just that idea of that, like we were not necessarily even allowed to be there. And that's a whole racial colonial
Yeah,
story that
that's a whole other bag.
yeah. But I think that like it's that piece, and then even the idea that like pen wasn't allowed in sacred spaces. And so for me, because I like, as you asked me where did I start, the first time I played pen was in church.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I see myself as a woman who started there, and even as a woman who's able to create and compose in this space, and is like it's not what like our parents were necessarily allowed. Like I have literally met women who have said, I'm so excited to see you play just because I wasn't allowed to. And there's women that I met along my journey that I played, and then I meet them 3 years later and they're just like, that I joined a community band. And so now they're 60 and 65 and they're doing that thing that like that society told them they couldn't do, years and years ago. And so it's about that and being able to do that and to show up in the space. But it's also to kind of look at like the fact that we don't realize how many women are kind of behind the work that happens in the pan yard.
Yeah.
And so it's very it's uncommon to see us up front, maybe as soloists, as arrangers, as composers, more so now maybe as band leaders, but like that we weren't necessarily seeing that. And so I think the Girl in the Yard of yesterday, like I can't even be there, is now like, now can you put me on? You know what I mean? Are people going to expect that I can arrange, that I can do these other things? But in spite of that we're still doing so much, whether we're, and I think that like, for me, this was for microcosmically, it was like, how do I get to show up? So I'll tell you about the songs. They're about women that allow me to show up to do what I do. But also the idea of like, on the banner, we see the arranger, the composer, the tuner, the band leader. But behind that, the names that we won't see are like, 60 women that are in that 110, 20 piece band, right? Or for me, like when I'm in my pan yard, it's like, I'm playing, but I see a bunch of women over there just holding the babies of the people that are playing. Somebody's feeding me. Someone's making sure I get my t-shirt, my wristband for Pan Alive. You know what I mean? It's like, and so this idea that like we are there, and to kind of recognize that. And this concept of Girl in the Yard is something that I'm gonna build on, in terms of like women's contributions to steel pan. But the beginning was to kind of look at like, okay, what do I get to be here, I get to do all this, but it's because of like legit my mom downstairs watching my children, my sisters, other people in community that allow me to be that girl there. And I think because I start where I started, like I don't take that lightly. And I think, you know what I mean? It's like we walk up to a water fountain, we just drink out of it, and we think that, oh, it was always like that. It wasn't. So I really don't take this lightly, that I get to do this and that I started in this space.
So you compose all your music. What's your process with composing? Because everything, I feel like it has an Afro, Brazil, Caribbean feel to it. So where does that stem from? And well, you mentioned it before, but for those that just joined, where did that stem from? And your process of composing and deciding what songs go where and if the song should make your cut.
Right, right. Yeah, because some didn't, some didn't. Okay, so I actually did my master's in after hating business school, I went back to school for music, and I ended up doing my master's looking at history, development, and composition for
Okay.
Steel Pen and the Jazz Idiom. And so that work was like, I just looked and I was like, which recordings had Pan on them, just looking back all the way to anything I could find that was documented, but particularly in jazz or other like pop music and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I looked at work. I looked at Othello Molina's work, Rudy Smith's work, Andy Narell's work. I interviewed all of them. And then I did some analysis of their work. And then I started to write music, but I kind of started from the drums. And there's a drummer that often has played with Andy Narell. His name is Jean-Philippe Fonfon, and he's written a book about drumming patterns from across the Caribbean diaspora.
Oh, wow.
And so I went through and I just kind of started to look. And I think sometimes like we look at Caribbean people and be like, oh, you must be Jamaican or you must be Trini, right? But we don't realize that even in Jamaica, you have reggae, you have ska, you have mento. Like there's all these things that we have, like even you go to Trinidad, it's not just calypso, it's not just soca, it's not just, you know. So it was kind of like trying to like look at that and see what I was drawn to. So I kind of like picked and played with rhythm, and then just played with a lot of different chord progressions. Sometimes I would just build a chord progression. I'd be like, what rhythm does that go with?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then sometimes I just looked at some song form and I was like, let me just unpack a song form and then put my own chords there with that. Okay. And then with that in the process, like I started thinking about the people who I wanted to kind of like make the songs connect to or connect the songs to. And so the first track, Lulu's Dream, is about my sister Sabira Rashida Lulu Laps. Sharifa the Great is my sister Asha Juliet Sharifa Laps. Wow. Josie Smile is Shaquila Josanne Alexander. Juliet Blooms is my mom. Her name is Maureen Juliet Amaryllis Laps. And so it was like writing to them. Oh. And I went through like a process of just that initial writing, you know, playing stuff, trying stuff. And sometimes, you know, you write music and then you get to hear it back in ensemble and you tweak. And so I wrote the music for my a lot of it was a part of my master's work, not all of it. And then I started to work with Andrew Stewart, who's a good friend, like a brother, but also he produced and then went in and did a lot of arranging of the stuff. So it's not just me. But knowing me, and because like he's like my brother, and so he knows my family, my sisters, and even helped to connect the music back to them. And so like Serena is about this girl that we were like dating these two guys that were friends in college, and Serena was like just this free spirit. And after we weren't dating them, we ended up both in Paris together, but she had gone ahead. She was doing her master's looking at the black hairs, the hair, like the barbershop or like the hair salon as a black community space. So she was there studying that space. And when I got there, she's like, Joe, you have to rent a bike. And so we would bike through Paris. We would bike to salsa clubs. And so like Andrew hearing that story, he's like, okay, well, why don't we, that's why he decided to kind of just like add that like accordionish kind of feel. You know what I mean? So you kind of get, so you're like, why is this in the Cubans? Right? And it's because it's from these stories or knowing just like what sister is a little bit saucier than the other sister, right? Or different stories, or just having, you know, like Larnell and I, like Andrew is actually a bass player that Larnell grew up in church playing with. And so so they call themselves Batman. And like, so I started when I did a jury in university, Gareth Burgess, he's a great pan player. He's based in Toronto. He was my teacher. He said, do your jury without any other chordal player so that you get to, the jurors know that you know your chords. And so I ended up working with him there. And he was like one of Larnell's one of the groomsmen, and over time we just kind of like played together, made music together, and then also we're like always communing together, and so our families kind of connected, and so he was also able to really reflect like the aura or the feeling of my sisters, in addition to it. So it's not just what I was telling him, it's like what he had experienced. And so I would say like, yeah, like that was kind of the process. He really led the way in terms of what tracks, like the order of the tracks. He really did that. Like he produced, and then he and I found it was really nice because I feel like sometimes as an instrumentalist you might feel a little, I think we can feel a little bit hesitant about working with a producer, but I really felt like I didn't feel like my voice was lost. It was like I would hear a piece somewhere, I hear a piece somewhere else, and he would just literally like, it's like taking a piece that, you put this over here, but why don't we just move it over here? Or I love Afro-Brazilian music, and so like Lulu, what was it? In Lulu's, it was a maraca too. But then he kind of was like, let's add some funk into the maraca too. So it wasn't like I didn't feel like it was lost, but so very much enhanced by his experience and his understanding of myself, my voice, and again, the people that I was writing about.
I can't wait for a Girl in the Yard too. Just saying.
Thank you.
Just saying.
Thank you.
And for those that are just joining, if you want to show the album again. Please purchase it. Please stream it.
Thank you.
I guarantee you'll listen to it over and over again. It's one of my favorite Pan albums. I'm telling you.
Thank you. Oh, and you asked about the artwork because I want to shout out the artwork. So Nathaniel Anderson took this picture. So in terms of like the feeling, I had just seen like this beautiful picture of a Black woman who had flowers in her hair, but it was like kind of animated. So and then I was like, literally before my photo shoot, and what happened was I got pregnant, and so I didn't know. And I was trying to finish my record, and I joked to people that my husband just kept getting me pregnant, so like I finished the record. But
that is hilarious.
Anyways, yeah, like so I was like worried. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant, and it was my second child, so I thought I'm just gonna, you never know how your body's gonna respond.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I just have to take these pictures. And I didn't really fully, like, I don't feel like I have like a full idea, but I was like, I just have to take these pictures because I was like, I won't look like myself again or whatever. So I was just at home and I was like on my pad. I was like, Lauren, I'll take a picture of this. Try this. And I hold, different things. Yeah. And I was like, this is it. I was at my sister. She runs this market, and my girlfriend, she actually helped me to find this piece, the neck piece. Yeah. And so yeah, I went to the photographer, and I kind of just like, I did the pose, and he is an amazing photographer. And I also have to shout out the makeup artist, Danica Batiste. Like I'm like, who is this person? Because it's not her. So, Danica Batiste. And Val Andrews, she helps me also with my fashion stuff. And then Jesse Ryan. So Jesse Ryan is the graphic designer. And I want to shout him out on this podcast because if you're on here and you're a Pan person, or you have any ties to Trinidad, Jesse is Trinidadian born, but is this like beautiful, he's like he's just a multi-talented artist. So he does graphic design, but he's also a saxophonist and composer. He just did this, his grandfather is the Mighty Bomber, and he just did this amazing performance, rearranging all of his music and all this. So yeah, Jesse is like, he's just creativity coming out of all ends of his body.
So after this podcast, just message me and I will tag him and everything.
So and I think because of that reason, his connection to Trinidad, I was really fortunate that it was like, to be able to have a graphic designer that can understand where this is coming from and understand the history. Yeah. I was like, I was really fortunate. And I think that like, also just even the work is so woman centered. I feel like I was also very fortunate to work with men who are okay to center women's voices and like in their practice and in their being, that is something that mattered to them. And so, that's that's the story around that work.
And just to come off of being in a male-dominated industry, I was going to ask you, have you found any difficulty when you started to now, just being a female and trying to get your voice heard in a male-dominated industry?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like in a way, yes, in the sense that like if I walked into like anywhere I walk in, because you know, like when you go to a gig, you know this, Danielle, you walk into a gig,
Yep.
You're not walking with your pen until you know where you're going. Like I'm not carrying this thing any further than I need
Yep.
to. So I usually don't walk in with an instrument. The instrument's in my car and I'm going to find the closest door to the stage, especially if I have other gear or whatever. So you walk in and they're like, oh, are you the singer? So I always get that. Like there's always an assumption that I'm not playing a percussion instrument.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's that piece. I think on the other side, like in a way, because there haven't been as many women steel pen soloists, that in a way it's like I've been able to be, I think I probably was exposed to more stages because I've been fortunate to be connected with programmers and curators who are conscious of having the diversity in their voice or like on their stages. I think though that I still, like any woman in a space like this, that we still kind of are probably paid less, or just even like, I think any woman in a hetero partnership is likely going to be like, oh, we just had a baby, I'm going to stay home because I make less. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It won't. Yeah. It's not even about do I want to, and we should have that choice. But I think we still. I experience that too.
Yeah.
And I think that like my husband is very good at what he does, but I also think that he's a man. So he's just going to make more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I would say that like I don't ever feel like I've experienced, extreme harassment, thankfully.
That's good.
But I also say that like I think as I continue to enter into the music industry in different places because of my husband, I also think that I avoid certain things because of him, and I don't know if it would always be the same.
Right.
Even when I go to Long and McQuaid.
Trust me.
Like sometimes I have to be like, I have to name drop because I'm just like, are you really going to send me the newbie to try to explain this thing that they don't understand? Do I have to tell you that I'm Lorna Lewis's wife? Somebody who knows what they're talking about. Shout out to Long. I love you guys, but
no, I love them too. It's like my safe haven, but I mean.
So yeah, I definitely feel like I get a level of respect because of him, and I don't know that that's every woman's experience.
Right. Yeah, so. It does change depending on who it is. Do you think, from what you've noticed or seen, do you think there's been an improvement as a female being in a male-dominated industry? Just kind of giving us our own voice, allowing us to speak.
I think so.
Yeah.
The thing is that like, I always say, and like Lorna will tell me this, that like I have a good relationship with my dad. And I think that like, I was saying this to another artist just recently, that like, because of he kind of really tried to instill a level of confidence and not arrogance, but confidence. And so and I think that like, so he kind of just like put this bit of deserve level in me that I feel like I walk with it. And so I don't necessarily, I'm not really, and I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight for anything. Like that's the last thing. I don't fight for things, but I think that it's just kind of like, I don't feel like I'm finding that resistance per se. I think that thankfully as a mom, I had my son in 2017 and he had a lot of medical challenges. So I was working a little bit, but not a lot. Like I had to be in hospital a lot with him. And then the pandemic hit, and my daughter is like a pandemic baby. Like she was 4 months old 3 or 4 months old. And so in the reopening of the world, I think a lot had changed in that time, and the empathy for the caregiving when everybody got sent home with their kids. I think think that it kind of like changed. People became a little bit more empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so this summer, like we toured across Canada with our children,
Yeah.
and programmers are like, oh, do you need a car seat? Do you need a, and, or like the green room, they
Wow.
were trying to make sure that, we thought you were bringing the kids. Like, so we also traveled with nursing and caregiving, but
Yeah.
sometimes we would bring the kids to shows. And so they would think, oh, we made sure we put your green room over here because we thought the kids were coming. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really trying to make sure that like our children, or that we were kind of more holistically cared for. And
That's good.
and I mean, unapologetically, we made a rider, the hospitality rider, that was like, this is this, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that like I felt like people were being more thoughtful about us as parents and trying to make room for that. I find that like even now, like today, I've been working at a school, and the students had a performance, and I brought my daughter with me. And when she wanted to pull the cowbell out of my hand in the middle of the performance, when I'm directing the students, the principal just came and he held her. And it was, yeah. And I think that like, and I also think it's because of the ethos of the school, like, but I think that that's becoming more and more, I all the time, I'll tell people, oh, I'm going to bring the children. And again, they're usually willing to make sure the green room is accommodated. Or if I say, hey, I don't have a nurse at home, so I have to bring my son and bring another caregiver on site. It's usually they're quite accommodating. And so I think that like, it hasn't been as difficult as I thought it would be. But I also think that, I think part of it is because I'm very public about our children. So I would just say that like, if there was something I would say to women, is that I wouldn't hide it. Like, I think women feel like they have to choose, or I've seen women that like they'll hide. And I actually too, I wasn't going to put I never put a baby bump on social media. It was other people that did. And because of our son's needs, we kind of decided to share. But I think that in sharing, it also kind of like that information and that sensibility and that sensitivity around it, people just come, they kind of, it's almost like they're deciding, they're like, oh, they're kind of like willingly engaging because they already know that this is,
that's a good thing.
We're a 4-pack.
You know? Take it or leave it. You mentioned teaching earlier, and I saw a question that popped up during our conversation. What grades do you teach? How long have you been doing it? How did you get into teaching in schools? And
Okay. Great. Thank you. So I started teaching because I would go on gigs, and I would be at a birthday party or a shower, and a teacher would be like, can you come to my school and teach? So I never thought that I would teach. Like, I never ever thought that I would teach. I thought I would be teaching just like when I was 3, I thought I'd be a doctor or a nurse or something, right? So it was everything about my movement into Pan was like very organic. Like, it wasn't, I never knew what I would do. And so it kind of started there, and it just kind of, it went from like, oh, can you come and teach them for this? Come and teach about Pan for this one time, or come and play for them. Oh, do you think you can come and teach this like after school program? And when I was in undergrad, I hated business, and I had this Escola de Samba class, and I had on Thursdays after economics and accounting and finance and foolishness that I do.
All the gross stuff.
I had Escola de Samba, and I had a piano lesson. And that was like my favorite day. So I played this little instrument. If you're anybody familiar with Brazilian instruments, I played a tamborim. It's a very small instrument. And if you know other Brazilian instruments, some of them are very big. And so I'm like living my life. I'm dancing. And the teacher, Rick Lazar, he was like, Joy, why don't you come downtown? We're teaching some children how to play, you know? Why don't you teach them some of your dance moves? Like, he called me to come teach them some dance moves just because, like, so I ended up going downtown and teaching dance to like an after school Brazilian samba class. And the women in that group, they were kind of like using Brazilian samba as a method of community engagement. And so I ended up working with them in this community organization, and because we worked well together, they asked me to come and work at their summer camp. And so then I was
Mhm.
like, you know, a camp counselor in a music camp. And I had actually, then I started to teach pan lessons again, because people would meet me. Can you teach my child? I'm like, sure. So I started a home studio, and my parents were so gracious. I had like a pan side in my parents' living room. I had a bass, a guitar, 2 double seconds, 3 lead pads
Hold
in like
on,
beside
hold
the
on, sorry.
hutch.
They allowed you to do that?
Yeah, like yeah, and I say this and I really appreciate them, because you know we have some Caribbean parents that are like the plastic is on there, you can't go in that
Yep.
room. Right? No, my
Yeah.
parents let me have, yeah, I had a steel, and I looked at the bylaws, and it's like, I lived in the town of Ajax, and I was like, how many people can you have at your business, a home based
Right.
business at once? And it was like 5 or 6. So I would teach these lessons of like 5 or 6 people um in my living room. And then eventually I did a summer camp out in Pickering. And then this community organization that was doing the Brazilian ensemble realized that we had like, just the ethos was very similar in terms of like how we wanted to use our instruments to engage community. And so I would like teach pan at the Brazilian samba camp, and eventually they would come to Ajax, and we were able to offer
Wow.
subsidized programming. And so
Yeah.
that's where I really learned, for me, like it was there that I learned about um, anything that I feel like was like that's social or like holistic care and
Mhm.
nurturing that people need and that we can achieve in community or even with an entire family, even
Yeah.
though it's like summer camp. I learned that there. And then I kind of learned, you know, the theory part wasn't so hard, but I think to
Mhm.
me, learning about the community, learning about integration with special needs children, learning about you know, just different, like there was one of the women was a social worker. That was her first thing, her first
Yeah.
kind of like designation. A child would come, she'd be like, he has separation anxiety, and then she would read, and we would read up on what is this, how does this impact how the child engages. That's
Mhm.
how I learned. And so, and then it kind of like, and then I kind of went into the like, you know, the school world. We had different our arts council, the OAC has like artists in education, and so I would then start doing residencies in schools, working along
Mhm.
with teachers to teach curriculum. I would do residencies in libraries, and eventually I would, you know, I would just be here, there, and everywhere. and and I would have these, you know, I'd have these grants to go into schools. Maybe I could do 5 schools, and one school call me, they want to throw out the pans, these people want to dash away the pans. So then I would go to the school, find the tuner, and be like, okay, tune these, okay, we're missing 3 of these, let's rent these until they can buy these. We have an itinerant
Mhm.
program here, so you can have teachers come in through the board, and they don't know about these things. So I kind of just started to
Yeah.
naturally kind of consult and help to kind of like revive, build, save,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Everything.
And for me, ever since I started teaching, I never really moved towards like the most astute, like and like amazingly technical students. It was
Mhm.
more like, I just want to give you these beginning foundational methods, because I wanted them to go into the pan yards, because
Yeah.
I've always just felt like there's so much beauty in our culture, but the way it's set up is that like, I feel like it's going to die with our parents' generation, like the volunteerism that is required, that die hard pan
Yeah.
Jumbi, mass camp
Yeah.
Jumbi, like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it really, so I always wanted to just keep on feeding that. And then, you know, you do, you know, we do lessons for 3 months, and then you tell me what pan yard you live close to, and then
Yeah.
we're feeding you in. And
Yeah.
I feel like we have those kind of gaps from like elementary to high school. So that's kind of like how it started. And then when I had my son, I couldn't be running here and there. And
Right.
so between my son and the pandemic, it actually demanded that I moved into even more consultation to teach teachers and to work with boards. And
Mhm.
so I didn't necessarily want it that way, because I
Yeah.
loved being in the classroom, but it kind of divinely became more impactful, because now I can teach teachers. So like literally I just came back from the Steel Pen Educators Network in Iowa last weekend at their conference, and I'm like teaching a room of teachers, or
Right.
one of our boards here, their professional development day. I just taught a room of music teachers
Okay.
about You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, sometimes we think, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And you're like, actually, better, that is a better fit. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing because it's needed
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You mentioned Andy Narroll
Mm-hmm.
earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe I read that he's your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he still is. How did that come about? And is it important for musicians to have mentors? And if so, like, in what sense?
I'm going to answer your second question first. I think it's so
Yeah.
important for us to have mentors in all aspects of life. And like, I want more. Like, I really want more.
Hmm.
Whether it's like marriage or your career or even just like friendships. Like, I think there's so many things that we experience in life and we'll be thinking that we're all alone.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I have anxiety. I'm not going to tell anybody. And then you're like, everybody has anxiety. We just don't talk about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's just important because again, it makes us, I think it just allows us to see something, allow an elder or somebody more experienced to kind of like tell us when we're not doing something right, lead us in the right direction, help us to not make the same mistakes that they made.
Hmm.
And so for me, like with Andy, I would say that I don't get to work super close with him, but what happened was I don't know, it was like 2004, 2005. I went to Antigua to play for a pan festival, and I was leaving the airport, and they sold all these like recordings, and that's where I saw his record with Calypso Session. It's like the band in France. So I saw that the
Yeah.
passage, and so I got that record, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so cool. And
Yeah.
so it first started with like I had to do exchange for my business, and like as I said, I hated my business course, so I tried to like go to like we had to go on exchange, and I tried to go to West
Hmm.
Africa, but they wouldn't let me go because they didn't have partner schools. And then I tried to go to Brazil because they wouldn't let me go because they only taught business in Portuguese, and I couldn't go to third year University of Business in Portuguese. So then I looked on the Calypso Association record, and I
Hmm.
sent them the list of partner schools in France. And I was like, which school are you closest to? I emailed them,
Yeah.
and they're like, Université Paris Dauphine. So I went there, and I got to like go. I went to school in Paris. I did go to university in Paris, but I actually went so that I could go to the Penn school. And
Hopefully
I
they're not
spent some,
watching.
pardon me.
So hopefully people that sent you aren't watching.
So yeah, and like and then so it was kind of like that was kind of like, oh, you know, they're talking about Andy and he's really cool. And then one day I decided that like I really wanted to like go further in Pan. This was like
Hmm.
after, you know, going back to school for music for a few years. And the OAC has a grant for skills development. For they have them in general, but also specific ones to people of color and Indigenous folks. And
Hmm.
so I applied, and I just emailed Andy. I'm like, let's see. And comes
Yeah.
back to when I was saying about that deserve level. And I tell people all the time, like, he could just say no. And I was
Yeah.
like, can I come and study with you? I really wanted, and I wanted to learn because I felt like he had such a beautiful sound from his like recordings.
Hmm.
Um, and then his music had been placed in film. He was universities across the world were playing his music, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to, and then I also noticed that like his like ride or die Anita, like I was like, how are you just not even like, how are you just professionally doing this? Like, how is this working out in your personal life?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, he let me come. I stayed in a little apartment they had on their property.
Yeah.
And I just got to see them together, how they work together. And before I went to study with him, um, he was actually arranging in Trinidad. And I had mentioned I was going to be, I'm going to go to Trinidad. He's like, why don't you come and play in the band? So I got to to Larnell, and I got to spend some time with them
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And so, and he's just such a cool guy. And it was just, for me, I always just love to see people who are so accomplished, but so humble and so just cool and approachable, willing to help,
Hmm.
understands, and somebody who, you know, I think um, when we look at these practices like ours that have these West African roots and we see other people doing them, like he's somebody who is not Black, but very much
Yeah.
aware of where this comes from and is never going to not kind of like share and acknowledge that history.
Hmm.
And I really hadn't seen anybody who had kind of like had this you know, not commercial, but commercial kind of success.
Yeah.
And, you know, happily, you know, with this partner and happy in that. So like, for me, it was like, it was really, I wanted to see somebody who was in my practice doing things, understanding how to do things and make it viable. You know, how did he take care of himself health wise? Like that man's
Yeah.
like swimming and running and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and to see how him and Anita worked, because he's still, when I would study with him, he's still traveling,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like how do they function together? And then the theory, and he goes like, you need to do, I was on Finales, like you need to be on Sibelius. I was on Cubase. He was like, you need to get on Pro Tools and everything in between, you know? And he's a
Yeah.
basketball man. Like I was like, I could get down with this. Get out all
I
of
did not know about that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Wow. That's good. Well, we're almost an hour has gone so fast, and then we've learned so much about you. I want to keep going. But what is one thing that you've learned over your years that you hold on today that you would like to tell a younger version of you?
Mm. Oh man. I think that like I really wish that I told a younger version of myself that that I could really, really pursue this. Because I think that like when I tell you about business school and hating it, it's because I was playing pan, but as
Mm-hmm.
a rote based, West African based, I think that I wasn't thinking about all of the like how we look at music and how we appreciate and think about like what music deserves, whatever. Like I can speak to it now, but I think at the time I just looked at, oh, it's a rote based instrument. I don't know
Yeah.
enough about theory. There's nothing impactful. That why would I go to university and do this? Why would I even explore? And at this, and like we have way more accomplished and sophisticated university programs across the United States, or even in Trinidad. Like I wasn't even thinking I could just go there
Yeah.
and study my instrument.
Yeah.
I didn't think, and so when I was in business, is because I thought I had to do something else. So I think that like what I wish that I had told myself is like, you can actually, like, this thing is worthy and you're worthy of pursuing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I wish I had said that to myself. And I feel like today, I feel like what a part of what makes me unique is like the diverse experience that I have. And so when I speak to an artist or about personal finance, it's because I studied it and I know that it has impact. So I don't think it was a bad thing, but I also feel like, you know, I always want to like tighten up my chops. And I kind of wish that I had done some of that at a younger age, because trust girl with 3 and a 5-year-old, how are you working on them scales?
Time.
So,
You can just do it. You can just do what my dad used to do. He used to stick me underneath his panel. He's practicing, and I'd fall asleep. So you can do that. Oh my goodness. Well, before we end and come to a close, if anyone has any questions, now is your time to do it. What is one fun fact that no one knows about you that is PG that we can post later?
Okay. I'm a diehard Sound of Music fan. I mean, I guess it's not totally like not public. And the first time I went on a date with Larnell, not the first time, but I went to Dave and Buster's, and I beat him in basketball. And I'm saying this because I want him to. I'm going to be telling him, you need to watch this live just for this moment.
You beat him like really bad? Did you beat him badly? Like,
I think it was. It was. My mom is a netball player, so I'm just like, he doesn't understand that I was coming from all net. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no backboard. Yes.
That is
I know.
funny.
And this is what it is. It's I'm a trash talker. That's what it is. I think that's.
Okay.
When it comes to this, yeah. He could tear me up in basketball, but I will still talk trash just for fun. Like
that's all you need.
Like,
that's all you need. Just get into his head and he'll throw him off. Oh my goodness. I wish we could keep this going, but it's been an hour and I don't want to keep you away from your children because I know you have wonderful family watching them, and I want to thank them for allowing you to have this time, because I think, especially for Women's Month, just to see women doing their thing and getting out there and being the face of Pan, because we need to be the face.
Yeah.
So Judah has I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but I'll read it anyway. I'm thinking of going to Trinidad next year to play Panorama with a few steel bands. What is the biggest thing you would have wanted to know hindsight before you went over to Trinidad?
I think, I mean, the times that I had they were pretty positive. So I would just think about like, so I went with Birdsong, and for me, for me, like, values are really important. So I like try to look at values in everything. And for me, that band was like a social enterprise. They were funded, they were self-funded. And so nobody got paid to play. I think maybe the Trinidadian players got paid, and I think they should have, but they were kind of like not compromising artistic integrity for prize money. Right. And I love that. I love that about it. Yeah. And I feel like, and so, and they're like, they have a music school. So I think for me, just like looking at, what do you care about? And it doesn't, and I think that for everybody that's different, but I would just say that like, that's the piece. And then where you're staying, because you want to be able to get around, and you want to be like, or at least be able to have access to get around. So the way our experience in Trinidad was set up was that like, they really helped us to kind of like maybe rent a bus to go to Maracas on like to go on a day trip, or to go to another beach on a day trip. And so like, I felt like I had this really well-rounded experience. And so I would just think about like, other than I think most of the Panyards, when they have foreign players, they'll probably have like some sort of transportation plan. Yeah. And especially if they feel like maybe there's a safety piece to be really considerate of. But I would say like, just that, like, are you being taken care of? Are you safe? Can you travel safe to and from? And what does the rest of the trip look like? Like, I'm a foodie. Yes. I was close to this really good.
Name drop. I want to know. Name drop.
Right? So just think about like, what are those things that matter to you? And make sure like those aspects of the trip, because you don't want to be like, oh, I can only get to the Panyard at night. Do you want to be close to the Panyard? Because they'll probably be open. You could go and practice in the daytime. Like, I was close enough to just get in a taxi and go, So I would think about that.
Okay. Good to know. I'm also planning on going next year, so that's good to know. Show your album again, because I feel like we need to keep pushing this. Girl in the Yard. Please stream it, buy it, listen to it. If you know me, you know I don't steer you wrong. So please get it. I appreciate you. Thanks again for being on the show. If you ever have anything coming up and you just like, I need to promote, Danielle, are you available? I will do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again. And if I usually have open discussion. So if you have time and you just want to chime in, do it.
Request to join.
Just do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I like I said, I've been watching everything that you're doing. And so thank you so much, because I think it's just nice to be able to have discussions about like all aspects of Pan. And I think that like, obviously there's people that are here that they care, and I feel like there is definitely, I know I said that like I'm worried that the Pan will die out, but at the same time it's like, I think it's things like this and being able to connect people who want to see the practice stay alive. It's like, these are the kinds of things that are going to fuel those conversations, or maybe make somebody who didn't know about it, get into it. So it's so cool. And if you're another woman in Pan, so I'm with all of that, all of whatever you're doing.
Thank you. I try. So I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. No idea. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Joy. Again, it's been an amazing discussion. If I come to Toronto, I will link you because I feel like this conversation needs to continue
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. Thank you,
Um,
everybody.
yeah, thank you again. Tune in next week. I might have someone. We're still kind of waiting to hear back, but if not, it will be an open discussion and we will talk about, again, all things Pan. Get it? Get it? So have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week. And oh, your husband just tuned in. You're late.
Learn how I already told them about how I beat you in basketball.
It was a great story. You should watch it later. When I end it, watch this. Watch the live. Yeah, so again, have a great night and we'll talk again soon. Bye, everyone.